taking a look in the WWF from the time frame of 1980 to 1981. And we're going to look at every cover and some programs that was released in those 2 years, 80 and 81, featuring the WWF on the cover of the magazine. We're going to go kind of in order, but it's going to be, the order is going to be all over the place because once again, very difficult task, very time consuming, is putting together the magazine date to go along with the program date that is featured on the cover for that particular event. So if something's off a little bit, just fair warning, a month maybe here or there, back or forward, the cover. So I did the best I could for you guys to match up the cover to the program. So before I jump into 1980, coming off of a stellar 1979, 78, 79 year, was some awesome wrestling and some big changes. Now rolling into the new decade of the 80s, tough to hold a candle up to the 70s, but for the first couple of years, it certainly does do an incredible job early on. There was a WWF champion, the North American heavyweight champion, and that was held by Ted DiBiase. This is your one and only. This is on this issue, if you're looking for this, and it's an extremely issue of Gong of 1981. It's got Hulk Hogan's rookie card here. That's why this is so expensive. But the focus of this is Ted DiBiase right here, if I can get the light better. Ted DiBiase here holding the WWF North American Heavyweight Championship, which is shortly moved to the WWF Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship. So he was the actual first Intercontinental Champion. They changed the name of it, and Pat Patterson fictitiously wins a tournament in Rio de Janeiro, becoming the first WWF Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion, and he did so as a heel. He would have an awesome feud against Bob Backlund, 4 times repeats in Madison Square Garden, never done before, never done since. Has there been a feud? Usually you're lucky to get a 2-match, a match and then a return. Often it is a rubber match, settling it within 3 matches. Backlund and Patterson went at it 4 times, which holds a record for as many back-to-backs for the WWF Heavyweight Championship title. Backlund and Patterson kicking off the January issue of Inside Wrestling. This is January of 1980. And now remember, these are going to be in order as best as I can, matching the dates to the program. So in this issue, there's a couple things I wanted to show here. This deathmatch issue from Japan is front and covered of the last match of the Patterson-Backlund match inside of a steel cage. It gets the cover. This is what they're calling a death match issue. This is a little bit later on, but I wanted to show you some awesome pictures in here. Bruiser Brody taking on Dusty Rhodes in a bull rope match, or they'd say cowbell match, because the cowbell match on the cowbell is on the rope here. Awesome shot of Brody and Dusty. There are some color pictures of the steel cage match with Patterson here, if I can get the picture, the focus right, and a couple in here. But it's not just to that match. The magazine goes on to some older matches as well. Good looking shot here of Inoki and the Sheik going at it. This is a pretty good issue. It talks about all their death matches. A death match in Japan was a steel cage match here. In other words, their steel cage match is, they call them death match, and it's basically the same thing. It just sounds a little bit more dangerous with the wording. A good overall magazine. I like it a lot, and it covers some matches from the 70s as well as into the early 80s. Harley Race recaptures the NWA Heavyweight Championship from Dusty Rhodes for a quick finish, quick title change, and back for Harley. Gets the 3rd time. and this is January 1980. Always loved this picture of photo of Harley holding up the belt in the back locker room with the gold and the blood coming down his face. I have an autographed copy of that up there somewhere. On the same cover, sorry, we're not talking about Harley. This is a WWF video. I might forget that too, so bear with me on that. We're looking at Bob Backlund taking on the Sheik in Olympia in Detroit, Olympia Stadium in Detroit, and Bob Backlund would take that title from the Sheik. This is, we covered this several different times, and we showed it, so I'll just blow through it quickly. Dusty Rhodes here on the cover with the Florida Heavyweight Championship belt and the Japanese issues, but let's take a look at a few color shots of the Sheik and Backlund for the titles in a title versus title. And here you can see both men coming to the ring on the left-hand side wearing the belts. Sheik with the foreign object, big page on the right. And of course, some blood on the Sheik. Backlund victorious, and we're now with the double belt. Awesome looking shot of Backlund wearing both belts there. Just wanted to show that. This also has the follow-up match with Patterson in the cage with Backlund, and you can see a couple of color photos from that as well. I think there's one more. No, that's it. Tiger Jeet Singh taking on Antonio, but Sheik and Backlund on the cover, making it all the way to Japan. Dusty Rhodes now on the cover, taking on Stan Hansen in the Madison Square Garden. They're not showing Stan the Man here. They're just saying Dusty Rhodes wins the NWA title but loses it a week later. But it's a Madison Square Garden match with him and Stan the Man. And if you look closely, if you have this magazine, they black out the tights on his where the lettering would say the Man on it. They blacked it out. They didn't want us to know it was Stan. Anyway, Bob Backlund on the far right in the corner here as world champion with the title here, looking at Bob Backlund as the heavyweight champ. Best of the Wrestler winter of 1980. Best of the Wrestler, of course, was a recycled articles. That's what I call them, recycled articles. More so, flashback to older articles from the best of from that publication. Superstar taking on Mil Mascaras here on the front cover. WWF Action Magazine 1980 will put out their 5th and final issue. It's expensive. I don't think they're worth that kind of money. I didn't even realize I had it. When I found it, I was surprised because several times I thought about rebuying it and never even knowing I owned it the first time. But I love it because of the poster. Since then, Pat Patterson had turned face. If I can get this all in there. Patterson turns face and shake hands with world champ Bob Backlund, posing for a poster. And what a cool looking poster this is. I know the glare sucks, sorry about that. But if you're buying this, make sure that the poster is in there. It's a great rare shot from Les Thatcher. Les Thatcher, who is responsible for all those Mid-Atlantic and Southern programs and magazines that he's published, came up to the WWF and did it for us here in New York. Japan had released an all WWF color photo album for Bob as champion, and the whole thing is about Bob. I won't show you every page. It's just got some older shots of him when he was young, all the way through to some of his title wins. Here he is early on against the Sheik, and the Iron Sheik, that is. But here's a shot of Bob here with his wife. This is getting in center here. I can't see the screen, so I'm having a difficult time balancing this until I can get myself closer. But it comes with a poster. I'm not going to open it up. It's enormous. I'll just hold it half so you can kind of see what it is. If you get that and you're paying the $100 or whatever dollars for it, make sure it's got this poster and it's got him with the belt. Like I said, it's enormous. I mean, I can't even fit the whole thing into the screen, but you get the idea. Make sure that is with it. If you're a Bob Backlund fan, you will definitely enjoy it. Let me see if What's going on here? Hang on one sec, bear with me. If I go too up and I get off target here, the glare is murder. We discussed it further in other videos, but here it is again. Antonio Inoki now in the 1980 Japanese Pro Fight Weekly magazine, which is the newspaper, winning the World Wrestling Federation title from Bob Backlund. And it's just got Inoki on the front winning, and just a color shot on the back. Billy Robinson, look, taking on Jumbo Tsuruta. Ken Patera, now in February, as we move on through 1980, Ken Patera on the front cover with Bruno Sammartino, gets the cover of Inside Wrestling. And we got Andre the Giant here, which for some reason I thought was a TV match. I might be mistaken. I don't know why I thought it was a TV match. But he is against one of the Valiants, Jimmy Valiant, getting splashed by Andre here. Pedro Morales is on the cover with Andre the Giant. Sports Review, February 1980. Bob Backlund gets the Best of the Wrestler front cover. Bloody shot holding up the belt there. Good looking shot of Bob. All three champions would hit the Best of the Wrestler cover bloodied with the belt in 1980. It was pretty cool. We had Bockwinkel and Harley. Let's see. Another match at the Garden. Antonio Inoki taking on Hussein Arab, who was, of course, the Iron Sheik in this issue of Wrestling Today. Main shot is Flair and Buddy Rogers. We're looking at Bobby Duncombe take on Backlund for the title, and we talked about that with the title switch with Antonio Inoki and how he went into this match at the Garden, not the world champion, not even announced as champion. We discussed that back then, and here's just another shot of it here with Duncombe challenging Bob Backlund for the title. Bob was not the champion here, just not announced so at the table or on the microphone when the announcements, but the magazines and all knew that he had lost that belt to Inoki for a short period. Bruno on the cover of March 1980. Good looking shot of Bruno when he's getting ready, at the twilight of his career, less than a year and a half or so, he'd be retiring for good, supposedly. Special edition Sports Review has the annual year awards. This is the first and I believe only time it was released on Sports Review. It would go to PWI after this issue. And sorry about that. We'll go after this issue. Bob Backlund had gotten Wrestler of the Year on this issue of March of 1981. Having some technical difficulties here with this shit. Hang on. Trying to keep it, because I'm getting closer now, so the glare should be getting ready to roll out of here. Bruno taking on Bobby Duncombe on the Pro Wrestling Illustrated March's 1980 issue of PWI. Another look at Best of the Wrestler Spring of 1980. Mascaris again battling Superstar. Ernie Ladd taking on Dusty Rhodes. Could have been anywhere. Mid-South, Florida. Who knows? That could have been anywhere in the country, that match. Dusty takes the world title, but we're not here talking about Dusty. Bob Backlund on the bottom takes the title from Superstar Billy Graham. A look back in the Wrestling Picture Book, spring of 1980. And this publication is just about to go out as well. They would all be closing up from the, one of the several major 70s magazines from the Sports Review series would be ending, but new ones would seem to pop up in the 80s. But Picture Book, Photo Album, Greatest Battles, Best of the Wrestler would all be ending quite shortly here, and making way for newer titles with newer magazines with newer publication titles. Backlund takes on Bobby Duncombe here in the April issue, and we talked about that from the '79 match from the Garden. Here's is on the cover of Inside Wrestling, April 1980. We've got this might not be here I don't think this is a WWF cover. Well, we got the Youngbloods as the World Tag Team Champions, and Mr. Wrestling 2 versus Mr. Wrestling 2. Find out this inside story on what happened there. Also, Dusty battling Ken Patera. Ken Patera was after the WWF Intercontinental title. I don't believe that's a title defense for Dusty, so that magazine was in there by mistake. Andre the Giant, the mystery man who controls Andre the Giant, and April of 1980 Sports Review. An even better photo, and should have gotten the main cover here, Blackjack Mulligan in a Texas street fight with Big John Studd, and April of 1980's issue. Would have loved to have seen that match. I've said that once before. Big fan of both those two, and I like that feud. I believe they feuded in Southeastern Championship Wrestling. Was it maybe the Alabama version? I can't remember. It was great TV. It may have been NWA Championship Wrestling from Knoxville. I'm not sure, but they've had several battles, those two. Iron Sheik, again, the great Hussein Arab is on the cover of Wrestling Today. Another rarer, smaller publication, but only be around for a couple of more years. It was a good magazine that covered good matches from territories that we didn't really get in the other magazines. So short-lived, but a decent publication for sure. Bruno Sammartino, a pool of blood on the cover after a friendly exhibition bout with the very jealous and eager to become a name of his own Larry Zbyszko on Inside Wrestling, May of 1981. And what was a scientific television match turned out to be a chair busted across the head of Bruno Sammartino on nationwide TV, leading to one of the biggest feuds for Bruno, one of the biggest in that year of 1980. Bruno would go out certainly on a high note as his career slowly came to an end. Every magazine picked this feud up. Another Inside Wrestling issue from August of 1980. Another good shot of Zbyszko and Bruno at the Garden. PWI would also get the cover of August 1980's issue. Bruno trying to break his neck. Bruno goes berserk, tried to kill Larry Zbyszko. Even the extra difficult, under the radar, hard to find magazines of wrestling, Dan Laurie's Wrestling Training Illustrated. Great magazine if you're a WWF fan, because he really didn't venture outside the Northeast. He was more so for the bodybuilding magazines and stuff like that, but he let out maybe 6 or 8 great issues of Wrestling Training Illustrated. You can find them from the mid-70s up until, this may have been the last, if not one of the last ones covered by Training Illustrated. He ended somewhere in 80 or 81. All nice, heavy, glossy paper, all good-looking photos. I highly recommend those issues. The covers weren't great, but the magazines were good. On the cover here, Andre the Giant of Madison Square Garden, and that's covering the Larry Zbyszko match with Bruno Sammartino, April 21st, 1980. So here's the program that went with the covers that we just looked at. I actually should have showed the program first. It's kind of a little bit of an out of order, but that's all right. Bruno gets the cover with Andre the Giant. On the cover of May 1980, The Wrestler. And also in its last year or so left down in Los Angeles is wrestling at the Olympic Auditorium. Mascaras has taken on Victor Rivera here in an old feud that dates back between those two to the early 70s through maybe even late 60s with those two down in that territory, which is just, like I said, about to close and a shame, because it was an incredible powerhouse on the west coast of California for wrestling fans. Bruno Hogan gets the front cover of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. It's Dusty getting his title win over Harley on the cover, but we're looking at Hogan here, and will he be the man to control wrestling in the 80s? I seriously doubt it, but I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe he could be a big thing. We all know what he did. Let's see. Spring of 1980's got an older picture of Bruno and Superstar at the Garden on the cover, again, of Wrestling Trainings Illustrated, and this is also another picture book. These picture books came with some big posters, and they're unique posters because they were only from his photographers. They weren't in any other magazines. They didn't sell them to any other magazines to use. So all the posters that come with these Wrestling Training Illustrated issues are all unique, and you won't find them on anywhere else. That's another reason why I highly recommend getting them if you're a magazine collector. Bob Backlund goes to the Philadelphia Spectrum May 10th and takes on Hulk Hogan, and here is a program from the Spectrum from their match. The magazines didn't really cover it as much as I would think. They didn't have a match at the Garden. Maybe that's why the mags in our country didn't cover it, but it was covered a lot in Japan. And here it is on Pro Wrestling Weekly Fight Magazine newspaper. Hard to get it in. I know the glare sucks, but here it is, Backlund. I'm not sure which event this was at. That's just the back cover. Usually they throw a color photo on the back, but not all of them. Backlund, Hogan, of course, coming up short. Hogan was the heel at this time. Backlund, the WWF champion. They released a magazine way later. This is July of 1981, and right now we're looking at 1980, so this was well later on. Our cover puts on Hogan taking on Backlund, and good looking. Always liked this cover of those two. Of course, I've always liked the posed magazine covers, but just a good looking shot of Backlund and Hogan there. Ivan Putski taking on the Hussein Arab Iron Sheik in June of 1980 on Inside Wrestling. Not a whole lot to talk about there. Putski was going to be soon tag team champions with Tito Santana at this point. June of 1980, the wrestler Backlund taking on Ken Patera in three of some of the gruelingest matches at the Garden. These two had some fantastic matches. If you can get a chance to look them up and see if they're online, do yourself a favor, and you'll see some great matches. Powerhouse Olympic champion Ken Patera for weightlifting, not wrestling, and Bob Backlund battle for the World Wrestling Federation title. And here's a good-looking shot of those two in action. Here is the program for January 21st, 1980. This has also got Kevin Von Erich's first Garden appearance, coming up from Texas to make his debut here in the Northeast for the first time. But there's a program. They would have a rematch, return bout, May. Actually, their rematch was in February. Let me see. Do I have another program? I probably got it mixed up. They would have three. They would have two back-to-back return bouts, and then Backlund would also take on Patera later on, and a few months later. As you can see, this is May's issue, 4 months after. But great feud, and not a lot of magazine coverage. A decent amount, but more so popular in the Northeast. That's why. Toru Tanaka taking on Bob Backlund here on the cover of Sports Review Annual 1980 for the Summers edition. Sammartino gets the cover of PWI July of 1980, and he's tired of being everyone's target, kind of hinting around that, I've done everything I could in wrestling, and retirement might be in the near future as he gets more comfortable at the announcer table. Wrestling Today taking on here with covering here with Ivan Putski, and he's taking on Bulldog Brower, and the exact date, it just says 1980. I don't get an exact month here, which is kind of strange. But there it is, Wrestling Today. And like I said earlier, it's a decent magazine. They put out a few when they were about to come to an end. Real early 81, I believe it ended. Summer of 1980's got Patera battling Bruno on the Best of the Wrestler. Also Graham again back for the third Best of the Wrestler with Mil Mascaras here in the corner. Hulk Hogan makes his wrestling magazine debut on the cover of Wrestling Review. Tito Santana now destined to be a champion. Here he is holding the one half of the tag team championship titles up here. Shea Stadium Spectacular took place in August. This is the program to it. We can take a look at some of the matches because you'll see a few covers coming up featuring some of these matches. If I can get this to stay focused here. Main event, Bruno taking on Zbyszko for supposedly the final time in their feud, which they battled up and down the East Coast tremendously, selling out arenas everywhere. Drew a lot of money. Also, Hogan and Andre battling at this event, also drawing a lot of money. Taking that feud to the AWA as partners, as tag team partners later on. They already had battled several times in Japan and also tag teamed in Japan. The Samoans 1 and 2 take on Pedro and Backlund. Backlund being the WWF champion, and he would become the tag team champion, and Pedro would win the tag team titles at Shea Stadium here, with the one rule in the WWF: you cannot hold 2 championships at the same time. If you're already a champion, you can't win. You can win a second, but you'd have to forfeit one or the other. Of course, Bob forfeited the tag team with Pedro. And moving on to the wrestler taking on the same match from the Garden in front of 20,000 people, Rhodes. Oh, this is Dusty Rhodes in 20,000. Shea Stadium, sorry, 41,000. I was going to say 20,000, I'll sound right. 41,000 fans come to see Bruno take on Zbyszko in their steel cage match at the Shea Stadium event. Dusty in a headlock here with Harley. Great looking magazine cover for December of 1980 as we close out the 1980 year here, winding down, getting ready for 1981. And another shot with Andre and Hogan. Good looking magazine cover here as well on Sports Review. The Japanese Pro Fight also features it. You see this picture. You see this quite often if you've seen some full room shots of mine, because I have this sticking out, this poster, and they had no cover on the back. Like I said, sometimes they have full color on the back, but not all the time. Moving up to the fall, September of 1981, Big Ernie Ladd coming in to challenge Backlund for the WWF Heavyweight Championship. Bobby Duncombe and Andre the Giant get the cover of PWI on September 1980. Wrestling Training Illustrated released a good amount of magazines in 80, I see here. This is like the 3rd or 4th one. And this is another picture book of who's who. And these are all posters of all these guys that are named on the cover. Bruno taking on Ivan Koloff here on the front cover of Best of the Wrestler. Pretty uneventful, but setting up now to some heavier matches in the WWF for Bob Backlund to come here. First being taking on challenger Harley Race. Harley Race comes to the World Wrestling Federation, and he's looking for Backlund. For those of us who know the backstory and the feud, that started a few years earlier in St. Louis when Backlund defeated Race for the Missouri title. And those two would have a small feud down there, back and forth, which now leads up to here. Harley wants his revenge, and he wants to take Backlund's world title from him. None of that is said. None of that is played. None of that is the storyline. Now, all that should have been, but you got to remember, there's 2 different companies, and the one doesn't acknowledge the other. So it's just too bad. The marketing of this could have been so much better here for Harley. Title versus title in Madison Square Garden, September 22nd, 1980. The Japanese did it great with this awesome magazine of Weekly Pro Fight. I can't fit it all in, sorry, but you see here the good looking shot of both champions together in the Garden backstage before the event, and both having their World Championship belts. Love this magazine. I always have that on display as well. MSG's coverage, Japanese coverage of MSG's events in a magazine called Wrestling in the USA Part 2. I show Part 1 in another video, but this one now is Part 2, and it's featuring a great looking shot of Harley and Backlund, very close to the magazine cover that we have in our Inside Magazine Wrestling coming up in just a few seconds here. Gong covers it on their publication, and we can take a look at a few photos inside. And here is just the front of MSG. Backlund and Race challenge for a title versus title. Harley made 2 TV appearances to the build-up to this, and here is on the right both champions with their belts being announced as the champions of each company. And there's quite a few pages in this one here, a couple great shots here. As you can see, getting suplexed to the back and going for the pin for Harley, on Harley. Again, now abdominal stretch, Backlund starting to bleed on the left-hand side. Great looking color photos, man. I mean, you know, I can't stress it enough how awesome the Japanese magazines treated their fans with. Terrific. I mean, look how many pages you're getting. Full glossy color of these two great icons, and one of my all-time absolute favorite matches. And part of the reason I love watching it is because there's no commentator. It's just the fan reaction and the sounds in the ring, and I absolutely love matches like that. A lot of times announcers ruin it, especially, I mean, today, of course, since Bobby Heenan up, the commentary has been nothing but, a variety hour of jokes, and that's kind of takes away from the sport aspect and really helps water down, 2 professional athletes competing at a high level. But as you can see, great looking coverage here of all this. There's Terry Funk here with his goatee. They follow him at home as doing an interview. This is Gong, 1980, and Backlund and Race. They would also be on the Rival magazine, Pro Wrestling Weekly, Pro Wrestling Monthly, I'm sorry. It would be weekly later on, a couple of years from now. They go to a weekly magazine. Just as much great coverage in this one. A very unique cover. I thought it's a great in-action shot before Harley gets popped in the head here. I showed you enough pictures. I don't want to waste your time with that again, but it's just as many in that one. Inside Wrestling gets the cover of the match. They did not release this until January of '91. So like we said before, when you're talking about a magazine having lag time, so this was September, October, November, December, January. So 4 months later, this makes it to the cover of our magazines, and by then, Backlund has had a slew of other wrestlers coming at him for his title and some other great matches that haven't hit the magazines yet, if they hit the magazine at all. Inside, ringside, the Rings magazine. 79 and 80 is where they made their major changes from the ring to the rings, from the Wrestling News to Wrestling Review. They all got combined, and sometimes it confuses me which magazine it is. But they pick up the magazine, they pick up the title match well on their front cover here. And also Tommy Rich had snuck in and makes his Garden debut with Austin Idol. I may have passed that program already. I'm not sure. If I did, sorry. I forget which one. Or it might be coming up. I can't remember. But he comes to the WWF in a singles match, and so does Austin Idol. That would be his first and last appearance as Austin Idol. Of course, he was here as, Rick McCord, but then changes his gimmick to Austin Idol. Backlund and Race, as meeting in September. They would also have a third and final match as champions. This is Backlund here coming after Race's NWA title. Backlund's title is not on the line, I believe, if I'm correct. It says it in here somewhere. For November 7th would be their final champion versus champion, and it would take place in St. Louis. This is the program to that. And if you watched the previous WWF timeline video from 82 to 83, I go into depth talking about this particular program. I never showed the photos to it, and I should have, and it's in this issue here. This is November's issue of Gong, and I'll show you a couple of photos from that match, because this is never talked about, was never aired on TV, and let's see some color shots from the Japanese, how they covered this. So here is the two men in the ring. Vern Gagne is here as well, shaking hands as a guest to both guys. And again, with classic photos, great color shots, two world champions battling in St. Louis. Here we go again. Just some great looking pics from two great world champions. And that wraps, is that one more? Let's see. Yeah, that's it. Backlund, I'm sorry, but yeah, Backlund's finished up. It'll be Blackwell here and Andre the Giant taking on each other at that same event. So that wraps it up for Race and Backlund, and a nice look back at those two title versus titles that really, you know, didn't get a whole lot of discussion. Like if that happened, say 5, 6, 7 years later, and it was Hogan and Flair, it would have been tremendous. But times being what they were, we didn't really get a whole lot. We just had to rely on the magazines. Backlund now continuing to take on. Here's the February's program. I meant to have that with back further, and this was supposed to be May. Okay, here's Austin Idol and Tommy Rich. All right, so I knew the match happened sooner. I just got things out of order. Sorry about that. This stuff's confusing. Like I said, matching the cover with the program's a bitch because the dates are so all over the place. Rich and Idol make their first appearance here. I think it's Jose Estrada takes on Rich. I can't remember who took on Austin, but the return bout for Patera. And then they would battle again for the third time. They would have 3, and this is the May's match on the cover with Backlund, good and bloodied up here, taking on Ken Patera in their feud. Shortly soon to follow after Kevin's debut, Kerry Von Erich would make his debut in the Garden, and he would take on. You know what? I forget who he took on. Let's go inside. Here is the program. It's a used program with the lineups and stuff and the winners circled. I personally like that myself. Some people hate it. I like it. It tells part of the story. It gives it its own click of its, you know, its own personal charm and what the person was experiencing. And because he obviously loved this match when, you know, Backlund won and with Bruno, and he put a little heart there. But anyway, we're talking about Kerry. Jose Estrada, he took on opening bouts on March 24th, 1980. This is the program for the Garden for Kerry, and he makes his first magazine cover thanks to his first appearance in MSG. Pretty cool. And it was Wrestling Today picking it up. Of course, this kind of cover would never make it on a Stanley Weston issue. It's just too small of a match. It was the first match. How often do you see some, you know, opening match make it to a cover of a magazine? I don't think ever. That'd be the first one. Kerry owns the title to that one all alone. Ivan Putski gets the cover here on Inside Wrestling, November of 1980, and Dusty Rhodes on a small corner here talking about his title reign before losing it to Harley. November of 1980, we got Freddie Blassie bringing in his new threat, Hulk Hogan, but Hogan is threatened by Blassie. If you don't destroy Backlund, you're fired. Backlund now taking on former friend Larry Zbyszko after turning on Bruno Sammartino, gets his title shot against Backlund in Pro Wrestling Illustrated, November of 1980. Here's a program to that event. Backlund taking on Larry here, and June 16th of 1980 is the date of the match. Following the wars he's already been in, now we'll go to Japan. That is Bob Backlund taking on Dusty Rhodes in a fantasy match for the title. Fans chose who would be face and who would be heel, and Backlund was cheered and Dusty was booed, and Dusty was a face there. So the fans decided in a really good classic wrestling match, December of 1980's issue. Let's go inside the magazines to get a few looks at this. Backlund here, nothing. It just got Dusty in a side waist lock. Backlund training for the match with Dusty. Not a whole lot in this issue. And here it is again, a couple of action shots, shaking hands before the bouts. It would end in blood. That's the final picture in that issue of Gong. Its competitor, Weekly Pro, would cover more. And let's see. I thought I had it saved, but I missed the spot, I guess. Sorry about that. Give me one sec. It's only a couple of pictures. It's not a whole lot. Backlund here at the end of the match, walking out victorious with the belt and the bloody face after battling Dusty here. Good looking shot of Bob shaking hands with the fans. Awesome 2-page spread. Dusty dropping the elbow onto the leg of Backlund, injuring his leg. And I believe that's all we got from that. Oh, yeah, one last one here. Bob on the ground and Dusty being pulled off of him, putting the foot across the throat because he was the heel. And here is your program to that match that night. Backlund taking on Dusty. He was a former champion, Dusty, at this point. But here's the program. Match took place in New Japan, and this is New Japan's program. Inoki would continue on with the World Wrestling Federation as the NWF New Japan World Heavyweight Champion, defending his title in the Garden as their continued working relationship with New Japan and the WWF continued on. Backlund would get mixed up with Stan the Lariat, the Man Hansen. Here's Bob front and center of the wrestler in July 1980, and Backlund would have a war. We all know how Stan Hansen wrestles, and Bob was taking some licks for sure. Front cover of Pro Wrestling Monthly. Keep saying weekly. Pro Wrestling Monthly in the April's issue of 1981 has got a bloodied up Backlund across the forehead. Backlund meets Stan the Man in a return bout at the Garden on March 16th, 1981. Tag team champions Gurria and Martel get the front cover. And the weekly fight gets Backlund's victory after the match with Stan the Man. Bob is in the ring after the match holding up the title. Good looking shot of Bob here. And yes, there is a shot on the back finally. Back cover poster is Backlund and Stan for the WWF heavyweight title. Trying to fit that in there. I know it's a monster, but great looking shot of the abdominal stretch. They would finish their bouts inside of a steel cage. April 6th, 1981, and it's Backlund and Hansen inside of a steel cage. Here's the WWF program for the Garden. Tor Kamada, rare magazine cover for Kamada, who wrestled pretty much all over the place, and but not so much in the Northeast, late 70s, early part of the 80s. And he would be battling Pedro Morales in several matches. Here they are, both bloodied up on the cover of Sports Review 1980. Here is a look at all three of our world champions at the time. Winter 1980, Dusty Rhodes, Bob Backlund for the WWF, and Bockwinkel with the old brown AWA, soon to be changed to the black AWA leather on the back. Hulk Hogan sneaking his way around the WWF, in and out after a couple of runs. 1981, he would be taking on Pat Patterson here, and they make it to the cover of PWI, January of 1981. Patterson, not much of a challenge for the Hulkster in the power department. Wrestling Today, Patterson would drop the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship to Ken Patera. Patera's got the bear hug on the cover of Wrestling Today, January 1981's issue, picking up that title loss. Two stuck together there. Backlund getting his hand raised after a victory. This is a independent wrestling magazine / program, Wrestling Wonders, and those are pretty cool. They always had good information and covered stuff that we didn't get a lot of times in the magazines. Inside Wrestling, featuring Backlund's new opponent for the title, Sergeant Slaughter, February of 1981. Always thought this was a cool cover. It was a bitch for me to find this as a kid. I remember going all over New York City trying to find this sucker, and every store didn't have it. Finally tracked it down. I just remember how long it took me to find it was a bitch, because a couple of my friends had it and I didn't get it yet, and I was pissed. And you see a little bit of blood trickling here, and what happened to Arnold Skolin? He goes crazy trying to protect Bob Backlund from the Cobra Clutch and losing the title. Gurria takes on former friend partner Zbyszko on the cover of Wrestler, February 1981. Gurria gets the front cover of the Garden program for October 20th, but it's the Backlund Slaughter match getting the main event at the Garden here. Zbyszko also took on Gurria. That magazine cover we just looked at there was also from that match. So there's 2 matches covered from the Garden on 2 different publications that month. Sports Review 1980 annual. It's got Bruno on the cover again after stopping Zbyszko. What is next for the former champ? Freebirds in the top corner, in the top center, sneaking in a shot as the national tag team champions from down south. Patterson and Ken Patera are battling for the Intercontinental belt. I'm not sure if this was the match that he wins or not. Pedro, it could have been. I don't have the program here. It's probably in another spot. This is February 1981's issue of PWI of Pedro and Patera. Zbyszko taking on Pedro now. Taking on all the champions with Zbyszko. Now that he beat up Bruno, he wants a title and he wants to prove that he's the best. And he comes up short, of course, doesn't make any titles. March of 81's issue of The Wrestler. Hogan and Andre in an older shot here from the 1980 years. This is spring of 81, Sports Review annual. Hogan shattered the myth of Andre the Giant. Here's just a program from the Boston area, Saturday, March 14th, of the Moondogs here. Moondogs soon to be, if not already, the tag team champions for our friends up northern than New York, like Mr. Cruz or so. This is your home of the woods territory. And Bruno's taking on Stan Hansen. Is this coming in clear? I hope. Yeah, Bruno taking on Hansen, Danucci and Morales taking on the Moondogs. Incredible Hulk Hogan, Barry Darrow. The Hangman takes on Steve King, Baron Cicluna, S.D. Jones. Not the greatest card, but nonetheless, it is a Boston Garden program for our friends up north. I just thought I'd show that to you rather than see a MSG program all the time. I have a couple more, I think, smaller programs in here, I think. Bruno, introducing Bruno Sammartino Jr. to the Georgia territory as he comes out and makes his debut wrestling in April of 81's issue of Inside Wrestling. So young Bruno Sammartino, looking forward to him in the future, following in his dad's footsteps. Only time will tell what will turn out for young Bruno. Superstar Graham gets a old flashback shot with Dusty from 78, and the Best of the Wrestlers covering that. Great looking bloody shot with the cowbell bull rope. Bruno taking on Sergeant Slaughter, PWI April 1981. This is a program that's just out of order, I guess. December 1980, we got Backlund. Bruno is taking on Slaughter. I'm sorry. So here is the cover. April's issue. Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, guys. It's just out of order. December 8th, 1980, Bruno would face Sergeant Slaughter in the main event at the Garden. And here it is on the cover of PWI. Bruno getting the cover. And the main event over champion Bob Backlund, which is kind of weird. Inoki and Backlund battling on the rings, and we just discussed their title their title exchange, I should say, just several months prior. 1981 Special Wrestling Wonders, and it's the blood, broken bones, and crippling injuries of professional wrestling. Great looking photos here of just the bloody guys on the front and also on the back. Superstar Graham with the Florida Heavyweight Championship here. Mil Mascaras with the America's title from Los Angeles. Ernie Ladd with the Florida Heavyweight Championship. Jack Briscoe as the NWA World Champion here. Great looking little photos. Love these little programs. Always bought them whenever I could find them. Still try to find them today. They're very difficult to find. I don't have all of them, but very many of them. Don't even know how many were actually made, honestly. Okay. Backlund now would be taking on Killer Khan. Yes, I'm out of order again. Backlund takes on Killer Khan here, and December 1980s program. Antonio Inoki on the front cover with the NWF World Heavyweight title that is defended in New Japan. He's coming to the Garden tonight to take on Bobby Duncombe. Match for Khan and Backlund right here on the cover of The Wrestler, May of 1980. Another program, I think this is for the Northeast, North, as in Boston area. Yep, Massachusetts. We're looking at all three managers here, which is really cool. I think it's, first time you ever seen all three of those guys together. Grant Wizard, Captain Lou Albano, Classy Freddie Blassie, and our friends in the Cape Cod Coliseum got to see Backlund take on Killer Khan for 1 hour. Moondogs take it on Gurria and Martel. Moondogs are now the World Tag Team Champions, defending their titles. A couple of the midget matches, tag team, Rick McGraw versus the Hangman. Pretty decent looking card for the Cape Cod Coliseum. And did I say the date? May 17th, 1981, just in case I didn't. Wrestling Superstars featuring Backlund and Bruno on the cover of Spring 1980. Cool looking cover, more like the end of the 76 and 77 look with all those funky colors mashed together. Won't be seeing any kind of magazines with that look anymore. That's pretty much, we roll into the 80s with the brighter colors and the more outlandish looking covers that were soon to follow. Two old timers reaching their ending of their career. Pedro would go on for a couple of more years, I think retire in 87 in Puerto Rico, I want to say, somewhere around there. Pedro, of course, the 4-time WWF champion. He gets credited for the trifecta of Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion as well as the Intercontinental. People forget, people erase history, and they don't mention he was also the WWF United States Heavyweight Champion. WWF United States Heavyweight Champion. He would that would merge with the WWF Heavyweight Championship belt when he beat Ivan Koloff in a title versus title. So that belt was ending either way. It was going to become part of the Heavyweight Championship belt. And when Pedro captured the title from Ivan, the two titles were merged together, and that's a title that Pedro held that he never gets credit for in the 80s. If you listen to your announcers who were changing history, they'll tell you he held all three. Well, he held all four. On the cover, Bob Backlund of the Madison Square Garden program, May 4th, 1981. Backlund is taking on King Kong Mosca, and I have the magazine somewhere. It's just not here. Here it is. Backlund defending the title against, at the time, Canadian heavyweight champion Angelo Mosca, coming to the territory to challenge Backlund. He is a champion heavyweight in Canada, coming down to the Garden. Also, Patterson takes on Sergeant Slaughter on the second main event of the night. Stan Hansen battling Bruno Sammartino, June of 1981, on the cover of The Wrestler. Also, early shot of Roddy Piper on the bottom, taking on the Masked Superstar here down in Georgia. One of the first few looks of Piper as he would become, as he climbed the ladder to superstardom. Killer Khan coming after Pedro Morales' Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship. That gets featured on the cover of June of 81's issue of Sports Review. Backlund meets Mosca again in a return bout at the Garden here. This is June 8th of 1981. So, follow-up match. Sergeant Slaughter, getting ahead of myself. Sergeant Slaughter would take on Pedro Morales here for the Intercontinental title. And that title match is featured on PWI, July of 1981. Pedro victorious over Sergeant. The Wrestling Superstars issue featuring the full cards. Everyone knows about this magazine, super hard to find. It's because of the ridiculous priced, overpriced cards that are in here, which are just a piece of paper God, it's a shame that it's so expensive because collectors can't, if they're looking to complete their magazines and complete a wrestling superstar issue, and you can't find this one, this is because why you can't find it, because of the cards. Summer of 1981 features Hogan giving Andre the camel clutch here. Great looking photo. Another fantastic magazine cover. I love it. I love it. Full cover. Look at Andre's hair all over the place. Hogan screaming, pulling the Andre's neck and his chin up, trying to get that man to submit. Great looking cover. Again, I always have that one displayed facing out as well. Not supposed to be here. Ricky Steamboat taking on Roddy Piper in the wrestling annual. That's not WWF. Bob Backlund will take on George the Animal Steele. Killer Khan faces Andre the Giant. July the 20th, 1981 at the Garden. Pittsburgh. Here's a Pittsburgh program from the Pittsburgh Civic Arena. Ron, is it Ron from Backyard Commish? We talk a lot. This is up in your territory, bud. Let's take a look at what you had that night here at the Civic. We had Mosca versus Backlund, Slaughter versus Patterson, Baron Miguel Cicluna, SD Jones, the Moondogs with Captain Lou taking on Gorilla Martel and Andre the Giant. The Red Demon took on DiNucci. Bruno Sammartino Jr. takes on Johnny DeFazio. And how about that? Bruno Jr. making the card early in 1981 up there in my favorite city in the world, Pittsburgh. I've got to get back there one day. I miss it. I love the place. Awesome people, awesome little home territory bars, and the great sports. I have got to get back there, maybe this fall. This is just your generic program here for Major League Wrestling that was sold at the arenas. I picked this one up along with a couple of other ones at a couple shows I went to in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I think one was Atlantic City and one was in Wildwood. I can't remember which one I got this one from. August 1981, Inside Wrestling, we're looking at Mil Mascaras taking on Moondog King on a flying body press from the Brendan Byrne Arena. Hogan gets the front cover here, August of 1980, when he's still in the quest for Backlund's title. August of 1981, Hogan short feud, Battle of the Muscle Men with Tony Atlas. Great looking cover again. Hogan getting pressed over Atlas's head. There's a rare shot of Hogan off of his feet getting thrown by Tony Atlas. Love it. The Rings magazine showing off the World Tag Team Champions, the Moondogs, as well as the Women's Champion, Moolah, August of 1981. Backlund back again. Now is to start a tremendous feud with the Magnificent Morocco, the Intercontinental Champion, August 24th, 1981. Bruno would have his final farewell bout at the Brendan Byrne Arena. Let's take a look inside real quick. He would take on George the Animal Steele. May as well show you the lineup. A lot of it is just some shots of Bruno and Steele in the past when they had matches in the 70s. And here is the program. Morocco would take on Mil Mascaras. Andre took on King Kong Mosca. Mr. USA Tony Atlas took on the Executioner. Gorilla and Martel took on Dick Bulldog Brower and Larry Sharp. SD Jones and DiNucci take on Fuji and Saito, the new up-and-coming challengers for the WWF Tag Team titles. Don Cristatello and Fabulous Moolah take on Candy Malloy and Judy Martin. So that's your farewell to Bruno at the Brendan Byrne October of 1981, and that would be the end, or would it be the end? Not looking at Tommy Rich as the world champion. We're looking at Pat Patterson in a bloodfest with Sergeant Slaughter some months back. We seen the program for it, but we cannot ignore Tommy Rich here. Tommy Rich firing out of the gate, super red hot, leaving the Tennessee area, comes to the Georgia area and lit it on fire more popular than anyone, rose to superstardom ridiculously fast, comes in and gets a title shot on a Monday night against Harley Race, the unbeatable world champion. People, you know, it's a cliche, oh, I've worked my whole life to become the world champion. And back then, this being the actual world championship title, the real world championship title, that was true. Nobody got their hands on that belt. It isn't like, you know, what happened, I don't know how it is today, but 20 years ago, you know, anybody who came through the front door that got their hand raised became a champion. Not so back in our day. Your title meant something. It didn't go to you unless you had some worth. Rich, being very young, coming in, sweeping Harley Race off of his feet, shocking everybody, taking the title on a Monday night, has 3 title defenses during that week, loses it to Race in a rematch on his 4th title defense, and by Saturday's TV, he had already lost the belt. Fans never had a chance to see it. It was never on TV as champion. One magazine picked up him and put him on the cover, encapsulating him as the youngest 24-year-old world champion here, Tommy Rich. And if it wasn't for this magazine, we would never even have known it. Tommy Rich is an unsung hero. Yeah, he was this, yeah, he was that. I don't give a shit about the politics behind. I don't care why he's not or why he should be or who he did with what. We're talking about him being a surprisingly underdog, taking the world title for 4 days and saying, I'm an NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and you weren't. And that is the talking point. Kayfabe is still alive. We don't bury that here. We don't discuss who coulda, shoulda, woulda, favorite, this, black. Nobody gives a shit. We're talking about the magazine covers and the wonderful history that these magazines stand for. And every day, a little more is getting erased and getting erased. That's why it's so important for us collectors to meet here, find out what's out there, and save these relics from extinction. Tommy Rich, one-time World Heavyweight Champion. No, not one time. Tommy Rich, NWA World Heavyweight Champion is more like it. Ric Flair, early shot here, fall of 81, bleeding when he was the United States Heavyweight Champion from the Mid-Atlantic Territory. Great looking belt, very close to the Sheik's belt from Detroit. I believe he lost it to Superfly, or Superfly beat him for, I can't remember. Anyway, Flair with a rare shot of him with that U.S. belt. The Wild Samoans now taking the World Tag Team Champions, Captain Lou on the cover with their newfound Destruction Crew, the Wild Samoans. Great looking shot of these 3 guys. They all look alike. They have the same, even Captain Lou blends in with that look. It was funny when he came out dressed like the Moondogs, and then when he came out with the Japan pants with Fuji and Saito, he was kind of blended with his men, and that's one of the things I always liked about Captain Lou. Wild, outrageous interviews, and very, very much a character that made wrestling so much more fun at times when sometimes it was extremely boring TV. Texas Deathmatch return bout. Bob Backlund defends against the Magnificent Morocco. Now, these great pictures here that are not going to be seen because this is 1981 September, and those covers will come out in 82. Like that's the lag time. But getting close to the end here as we hit the fall of 1981, rounding out 2 great years. Coming up just shortly, just a few more issues. Tito Santana taking on Hulk Hogan here on, again, another early shot of Hogan on the cover. I skipped the program, sorry about that. Backlund takes on Greg Valentine. Again, another fantastic feud coming up with him and Valentine for the title, and just not to be seen yet into the 1982 year. Both of these are just magazines that I bought in 81 at the arena. This is my first ever Rings issue. I'd never heard of Rings magazine before, and it was only sold mail away or at the arena. So when I seen I wanted to get my hands on every one of these that I could, only to find out that from this point you just had to order them. I didn't know they were strictly just a magazine that was sold in the arenas. Andre the Giant getting slammed on Weekly Pro Fight Japan. I know it's a monster. It's hard to fit it in here, but a great looking shot of Stan Hansen slamming Andre the Giant here in 1981, October. Great looking color shot, and nothing is on the back, just some Tiger Mask or whoever, I don't know who that is. No, it wouldn't be Tiger Mask because he didn't start until 82. Anyway, moving forward, now retired Bruno Sammartino. The magazines didn't know he retired yet because he retired in October, and here it is November putting out an issue. The fans, this would be hitting the newsstands before he retired, and it's him and Mascaras talking about if they would wrestle each other. A little bit late now. Would have been much better in the 70s, maybe, who knows. Best of the Wrestler, featuring another old-time match with Dusty and Superstar for the bull rope match. Great looking shot of those two. Rings Wrestling covers Tony Gurria in the top corner here, at the top right here on the cover of the Rings. Texas Death Match, Greg Valentine in a return bout with Bob Backlund gets the main event here on November of 81. Andre the Giant splashing on top of Killer Khan. Remember Killer Khan and breaking Andre's leg, and that was some drama. And I explained before, this is my first experience with Killer Khan, and listen to that dude scream. And when he was attacking people, it scared the living shit out of me as a kid. I mean, legit scared me. Like, this guy is a maniac. He's gonna destroy everybody in the arena. He gave you that kind of a feel. Again, when you're a kid. December 1981, George the Animal taking on Backlund here. In December of 81's The Wrestler. Dory Funk and Dusty get the main shot. Magnificent Morocco boasts to destroy Morales, and he will take Morales' title December of 1981, and that feud would continue into 1982, become a tremendous bloody feud that would go back and forth twice. Morocco would take the Intercontinental title 2 times. Gurria and Martel, the tag team champions, older pick here from the Rings. This is December's issue of the Rings, and it also repeats itself. This is Wrestling News. Okay, see the difference there? Wrestling News. It's the same magazine would be released for the Rings, and this would be their December-January of 82's issue. So it would be December 81, January 82, and Wrestling News would also release that as their 1981 issue as well. So there's a double cover, and if you're an idiot like me and you have to have everything complete, you're buying double covers when it happens. It's only ever happened to Wrestling, News as publication. The only cover to release doubles, I think they did it 4 different times. There was a cheap under budget promotion that really, had a hard time and seriously struggled in the 80s and when they folded. But it was a tremendous magazine for information on matches. That was your best source for kayfabe stories, for real stories. I'm sorry, not kayfabe stories. They were getting to the bottom line. They were treating it like a sport and not like a joke like some of the aftermags did. But I had a lot of respect for that magazine. Finishing off at the Brendan Byrne Arena, December of 1981, Jesse the Body Ventura would come in for his crack against Bob Backlund. Good looking cover here of Jesse as an AWA champion, looking like Superstar Billy Graham, and Bob Backlund here as the world champ. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for looking back at the wonderful 1980 and 81 timeline of the WWF as they appeared on the cover. Did my best to match them with the wrestling programs. It was time consuming. It took me almost like 2 weeks to get this stuff put together, but hopefully it was well worth it, and it gave you a trip down memory lane. Maybe it'll make you want to jog out and grab a couple of these issues while we still can. eBay, you can find them cheap if you're patient, and other places out there, online marketplaces. It all starts with one. If you just grab one, who knows, it might ignite the spark again for you to collect a couple more. All right, we'll see you guys on the next.